So I want to add an additional video because I woke up on Tuesday morning after this was due, and I saw there were several challenges students had with this assignment. And when that many students have that many challenges, it's really on the instructor, in my opinion, that says, you know what, I missed something in my instruction. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give a little more time so that if you didn't get this one done, you can submit it up until the due date for the next one. But you know, the sooner you do it, the better, because then I can give you that feedback loop, which was really the video I produced here. And what I should have done is also covered more of what was required to create what was needed for the output. So I'm going to do that on this video. Okay, so a couple things. I'm looking at the part 3, and there was a couple things that students ran into. One, and this was, I swear this worked, but when I was looking and running the commands from CS50, I was running the cat, and those were actually work. It seemed like I'd done them multiple times and they worked, but when I did them today, they didn't. So what I ended up doing here is I rewrote these to where they did work, and I hope they work for you now. Now, did you have to do these 2 steps? No, this just is a workflow that you could run these 2 commands at the bash, not in the SQLite subsystem, to run deleting that database and then running SQL with that new reference and then running that import file. You could have still, and you still can, run that import and just do the dot output to the POV, the proof of work file here. Okay, so again, that was something that was not was not optimal at all for the workflow I was showing. And again, you didn't have to. I was just trying to make it easier, because when you're doing this kind of cleaning, which by the way is such good experience, you really want to increase that workflow to show. So this audit file is really what your POV file needed to look like. Okay, so in this case, here's the way you write this, because I talked about using the dot print here. So the items like this, because in this case the first step you needed to do was create that temporary table. And in creating that temporary table, CS50 gave us some hints about what kind of data would be in there. And when you give the text affinity for that temporary table and you do the import, then that leads to what you're looking for in the cleaning conditions. And what I mean by that, as an example, like if something you have defined as real is when it's imported and there's nothing in there, it will place a 0 in there. So when you're looking for the mass and the lat and the long, really you're looking for anything that has 0, and then you would update that to null. And what I was doing, and I realized this is what created my headache, was that when I got to the next step of importing, I was over cleaning because I was looking for spaces. And I actually still need to do some research about why that was true. But let's continue through here just to give you. So for this first one, right, so after you do just the one, now the reason I did these was because there was nothing in creating that table that would I haven't tried alias there, but all these other ones is using alias. So you use alias, right? So you have one query here that runs, does a record count. So we do count star, right? A regular select, and output the number of records. But starting after that, then on step 2, you're writing a select that uses alias that outputs the number of records, in this case that meets the condition you're updating for. So this basically says, hey, I found 19 records with the update I'm going to do before. Okay, before. 2 before. Okay, so a total number of records for mass before update. Why didn't I do B4? 2B. Oh, 2B. 2B. 2. Yeah, it's so funny. When you haven't looked at something in a day, you forget what it was. 2B updated, right? So I have, so this is a query. Then what you don't see is there's another query that runs that actually does the update itself. And then another query afterwards, and basically a lot of times you can just take the first query, copy it underneath the update, and then on here you do an alias. okay, to say instead of this message as the column, as the alias on the count, you can do this, right? So this basically is just, again, I'm using the alias to create the before count, run the update. There's no output on the update, and then I do the post. Okay, so and again, you can't for the first batch, the mass, the lat, and the long, they were basically identical. Okay, as far as running what condition you were looking for, and again, going back to how you created that table and understanding what happens when you import item based on the text affinity. Okay, and then when you got to year, it was a little bit different because year, in this case, based on how you imported it, you would then need to look for that condition. Now, part of what I would look for here is that I wouldn't necessarily mark off for not having the exact number. More than anything, I want to give you feedback on the way you wrote your queries to select that, okay? So that you could then fix that before the last step. Okay, so again, select query, you run the update, you don't see anything in the POV file, but then you have the post. Okay? And then at the very end, you do end up having also for the 2 decimal places, there was a lot of records there. There was nothing that met my condition here. And then for the delete, there were 75, and then this ends this then gives me the like the bookmark. So here's the number of records I started with. I did all the cleaning, and then because I only deleted 75, I have basically just the beginning number minus the 75. But again, I'm just doing a count here. So when you create this where you have these items, right, that is just using the dot print to do that as well. Okay, so I hope this helps clear up many misunderstandings for this. And again, I'm going to give you until the next one to get this one done. I hope this helps. Let me know.